Slinky is the most unlikely toy, entangled in a tale of steps, missteps, and one woman's steely optimism. And if you think the odds of a metal spring selling over 1/3 of a billion copies is low, wait till you hear what she had to endure to make it so. This is the tale of a toy that everyone knows as Slinky. In 2006, I produced the film Toyland with director Ken Sons. We traveled to Hollidaysburg, Pennsylvania to the home of Slinky and to the home of the toy's matriarch, Betty James. She was just as fun and endearing as the toy she helped make famous.
Well, my earliest memory of Slinky was my husband coming home from work and had this thing in his hand, and he said, "I think I can make this walk." My husband was a mechanical engineer and marine engineer, and he was out on the trial run of a naval ship for the Cramp shipyard, and the spring fell off a table and gave him the idea that he might be able to make it walk. And when he finally got the properties and everything right, we brought Tom in, who was just a little full at that time. And then my husband said, "Let's try putting down the stairs." And I was speechless. So then we brought in neighborhood children to see if they liked it. And everybody seemed to like it. My husband said, "We have a toy now. You have to name it." I didn't know how or what I would call it. So I thought, well, get a dictionary and see if I can find anything that is sort of depictive of what this does. And the word Slinky was it. We were both just out of college and we didn't have any money and we had a little boy. We borrowed $500. We'd make what we could get for that price. 400 seemed to be about the limit. The 400 were made by the company that was rolling them for us. We didn't have the equipment at that time.
That company was the Wilkening Manufacturing Company in South Philadelphia, a maker of piston rings. Journalist Clark DeLeon discovered that before Slinky was invented, the employees at Wilkening were already playing with springs because a coil of uncut piston rings acted just like a Slinky. This toy lore is reminiscent of Frisbee pie workers tossing metal pie tins before the Frisbee was invented. Slinky's success brought competitors. A company in Chicago started selling Mr. Walker in December of 1946, but it was too late. Richard James had already filed his patent in August of that year. Perhaps to deter others, James Industries allowed Wilkening to produce their own spring toys, Quirly and Mr. Wiggle, as long as they paid a royalty and printed the James patent number on their box. Richard and Betty lost money on those first 400 Slinkies because they sold them for $1, just to see if anyone even wanted a walking spring. They couldn't even afford a box. Each one was hand-wrapped with yellow paper on which was printed instructions on how to play. Betty's father's model shop on Portico Street was the couple's first Slinky factory.
Yeah, it wasn't much of a factory. That was our first home. A lot of people thought we were crazy. In fact, sometimes I even wondered myself.
I remember the house in Brookline where Slinky started to get big. I must have been 4, 5.
We used Tom as a model because at that point we couldn't afford models. And we wanted to have something we could show the stores. When we first had Slinky, we would go out and try to show people. But you know, a Slinky just sitting there isn't terribly exciting because you don't know what it does. So we tried and they said no, they weren't interested. Well, finally, Mr. Urban at Gimbel's in Philadelphia took pity on us and he said, well, I'll give you the end of a counter in November and you can come down and see what you can do. My husband took them down and I thought, oh, you know, if he doesn't sell any, he's going to feel so sad. So I called a friend of mine and I said, if I give you $1, will you go with me and buy a Slinky so that if no one else is buying, at least it'll look like he has customers. We got down there and got off the elevator. There were all these people waving dollar bills. I mean, we sold 400 in 90 minutes.
After Slinky's debut at Gimbel's, the store returned the favor in the spring of 1946, advertising Slinky as a riot at parties. No wonder it swept New York like wildfire. And Slinky kept stretching beyond Philadelphia, showing up in department stores like Jordan Marsh in Boston, Blocks in Indianapolis, and Mays in Los Angeles. Richard and Betty also sold thousands of Slinkies direct to consumers through ads like these. How could James Industries go from having 400 Slinkies made for them to mass producing their own in less than a year? Richard James was a born engineer.
He made the first machine at the end of 1945. The wire comes in round, and it has some oil residue on it, and it goes in this bath, and there is a solution in the water to help take that off and cool it. Then it goes up and is flattened after that process, and then rolled on the reel, and then automatically cut off, and then the girls would crimp it on the ends for safety. Then it was put on the assembly line and would go down the line to the end. Slinky now has graduated to walking right off the assembly line into a box and then would be put in a master carton and taken to shipping. You know, when we started out in Portico Street in the little old building, we outgrew it. And we had to build a factory, so we got some land in Clifton Heights, which is a suburb of Philly, and we built our first factory there. And pretty soon we outgrew that. So then we decided, well, we had to build a larger one. And we built one out in Paoli, which is another suburb of Philly. We got round wire, and it was brought in huge barrels. And one day there was a steel strike, and we had orders, and I didn't know what we were going to do because we really needed it. So I thought, no, I'll call the president of Pittsburgh Steel. And I told him that our condition and what had happened, and I said, I know you wouldn't be where you are if you didn't have empathy for other people. And I said, could you help me? And the next couple days we got steel.
As Slinky's popularity grew, Richard had to build 5 more machines to keep up with demand. Just 10 years from its humble introduction, over 100 million Slinkies were sold. Yet not everything the company touched turned to gold. Richard and Betty had more than their share of flops, and dealing with outside inventors started out for James Industries as a very cautionary tale.
Oh, Marvin Glass, the inventor, came to our house in Philly, and he had a beanie, and he had a Slinky over the top. And we paid him quite a sum for it. I think it was, at that time, $5,000, which sounded enormous to us. That was something that didn't go over. And then we had a man come in one day, and he had these glasses, a Mr. Clark, and it was the silliest thing. I loved them.
Then in 1952, a tiny dog came to James Industries. He was just a little yellow fellow, but he sure had a lot of pull.
Helen Malsed from Seattle, Washington, had sent in a prototype of a dog, and it was cute. We asked her if she'd get a patent and we would pay her a royalty. And she said yes, so she gave us the full rights to it.
The Slinky dog was an immediate hit and led to many other successful pull toys based on Helen's patent, including the Slinky train, Slinky kitten, and a kid favorite, the Slinky caterpillar. Helen's royalties started slow and would only grow over the years. In this article from 1983, she said of her Slinky pull toy patent, I never did sit down to figure out how much I earned from it. I'd get checks for $50,000 and just spend the money.
I think the milestone that really stands out is my husband leaving. He became involved in a religious cult. And he decided that he was going to go to South America, and he went to Bolivia. Being the inventor, he was given all kinds of praise and everything, and he loved it. I think when he wasn't getting all the attention up here, he needed it, and he went down there where he could be a big man. He said to me, what are you going to do? Sell the company or run it? And without thinking, I said, why, of course I'll run it. I really think when he asked me that, he thought I would say sell it. And I thought, I'm going to do it. And he left, and I moved the children up to this house in 1960. And then I traveled back and forth for a year between Philly and here. I'd come up on Thursdays and do all the things the children needed and go back Sunday. It was a worst year.
She would drive alone 240 miles to Philadelphia. She commuted. Sunday night she left in tears
Leaving on Sunday night was bad because on the balcony of the stairway, they'd all be standing and Tom would be holding the baby and she'd be crying, and I usually cried from here to Harrisburg and then I was okay. I knew that I had people up here, my family, and I had 2 uncles that were doctors and my aunts that would look after my children while I had to be away. So that's why I moved up here. So I had 6 good reasons why I had to keep going. He was too busy with his own life to notice these children.
Richard James left his wife and kids, but to make matters worse, he left the company he founded in severe debt.
Oh, we were in great debt because he had given so much money to this group and even some of our equipment, and we were almost bankrupt.
She had paid for the house up here. She took all that, mortgaged it, bought wire, gambled that television would take off with Slinky the first year that she did it, and darn if it didn't.
It was at the time when everybody was having jingles.
Mr. Clean gets rid of dirt and grime and grease in just a minute. Brittle cream, a little daffodil. Ho, ho, ho. Green Giant.
By this time we had an agency, and Tom Curtin was our man and was with us for over 30 years. And I said, Tom, could you get a jingle for us? He contacted these 2 men and they wrote the jingle. And I got it from them and kept it forever.
Who walks the stair without a care and shoots so high in the sky?
Bounce up and down just like a clown. Everyone knows it's Slinky, the best present yet to give or get, the favorite all over town. The hit of the day when you're ready to play. Everyone knows it's Slinky, it's Slinky, it's Slinky. For fun it's the best of the toys. It's Slinky, it's Slinky, the favorite of girls and boys.
Slinky, it's Slinky, for fun it's a wonderful toy. It's Slinky, it's Slinky, it's fun for a girl and a boy. It's fun for a girl and a boy.
While at the Slinky plant, we couldn't help sending one down an old staircase. Plastic Slinkies were introduced sometime in the 1970s, in part because stairs changed. The staircases in homes in the 1940s were much steeper, with narrower treads than modern staircases.
Our item is so old that the country changed around us. The treads started getting wider and not as high, so we came up with plastic. And this thing will take longer steps. You've got an article in front of you, an interview by Dad, and he says, I was playing on the stairs and I discovered that it went downstairs. So that's my infinitesimal claim to fame. He called and said, did I want to see him? And I was older then, and I said, yeah, I sure do. And we went down and I visited with him. The first time I ever hugged my dad was when he left. And I'll never forget that I did it. And so my kids get hugs every day. So, silly thing.
He died in 1974 in Bolivia. And one day I was in the office and a telephone call. This person said, this is Walt Disney Studios. And I thought, oh yeah, well I'm Minnie Mouse. They said, we're calling to see if John Lasseter could come in and visit you. So he came in and he had seen our old dog and he liked it. And he asked if he could use it in the film Toy Story. I took my grandchildren and they were so excited, and so was I. It just seemed almost like a dream.
We didn't know what was going to happen. This was the first Toy Story, so we didn't know anything about what was going to happen. People started ordering. By the end of the toy show, and I have the book, and it went from 12,000 a week to 24 to 36 to 64 to 100,000 pieces a week we were making. That book just reminds me of how crazy the toy industry is, because it's crazy.
After Toy Story became a huge hit, James Industries saw a huge spike in sales and media coverage. Toy Story's release also coincided with Slinky's 50th anniversary, which was celebrated all year long in Hollidaysburg, and with the release of a limited edition gold-plated Slinky. All that buzz meant that the courters came calling for Slinky.
Oh yes, I was courted very much by companies much larger than I, and they were good companies.
We had huge players, Mattel And people like that. CBS television at one time.
But I thought, no, I'm not ready to sell. And after all, I was too young. I was only 79, and I wouldn't want to do that.
Finally, Ray Dellavecchia and Doug Ferner from Poof Products had what it took.
That was the selling point as far as I was concerned. I could have gotten more for the company had I sold to a larger firm, but they would have taken it away. I hope they never do it overseas. Holliesburg's good enough.
Poof Slinky was sold to Alex Global Products in 2013 and then to Just Play in 2020, the year of Slinky's 75th anniversary. Today, Slinky is still made in Hollidaysburg, Pennsylvania on the same machines Richard James built in 1945. She lived to see her toy go to space in 1985 and adorn a postage stamp in 1999. But I think Betty James would be most tickled by this. A Slinky treadmill. Yes, just like in 1945, some crazy engineer built a machine. The NESM, or Never Ending Slinky Machine, was successfully funded on Kickstarter in the UK in 2014. At the end of our time with Betty, we kept thinking of more questions, and she kept thinking of more stories.
Well, see, we go to say goodbye, and then we think of something.
After we wrapped, Betty surprised us with a 1988 bottle of Dom Perignon champagne. We agreed to open it together at the film's premiere. It wasn't meant to be. We dedicated the film to her. And after the showings of Toyland at the Sarasota Film Festival, we went on the roof of the parking garage overlooking the theater and raised our glasses to Betty James.
Betty.
Thanks for watching. Special thanks to Ken Sons and a heartfelt thank you to Tom James and Betty James.
But no, it's been a great life. It's been fun.